Welcome back to Retribution Report. Today's story comes from the Malicious Compliance subreddit, and it's called We're Working Too Fast? Okay, we'll slow it down for you. Alright, buckle up folks and let's get going. I work in construction, but more specifically, I cut concrete. A lot of people aren't familiar with my job, but all you really need to know is that I don't pour any concrete. I use big diesel and hydraulic power saws to cut and remove it. I work at a relatively small company, about 15 employees or so, and we are the company to use for concrete cutting and removal in our area. I was the first employee hired at this company, and my bosses are amazing. They have been in the industry for 25 and 30 years respectively. We will call them Brad and Cody. Now they know what they are doing, and they still get out and work in the field, and they will outwork any of our employees. We were awarded a no-bid contract at a very large facility to cut and remove a very large section of their outdoor slab because it had cracked. This was routine for us. We could do it in our sleep, but it was still a large project. The reason we were given the contract but not held to a number was because they wanted it done right and fast, and they knew that we were the guys to do this, even though we weren't always the cheapest. The customer requested us to bring extra equipment and specialized saws just in case. This will be important later. The day comes that we're supposed to start, and they wanted us on site at 6:30 a.m. for a safety meeting. Brad and Cody went out, while I stayed back to get my crews ready for the day before heading out to meet them. When I arrived at 8 a.m., they were still standing by their trucks just talking. I asked them how the safety meeting went, and they said that no one had shown up yet. Finally, they got there at around 9 a.m. and didn't even acknowledge that they were late. We met the guy that was in charge of the project. Let's call him John. John said during the safety meeting that there would always be a few people around from his company to watch us while we worked. We figured it was weird, but no big deal. We ran a routine safety meeting after, and it was time to start work. We got about a third of the project completed in one day. The entire time we were working, there was no less than 25 people standing around watching us work. We kept joking with them that they should just set up bleachers and it would be easier to watch that way. They made us call it quits at 4 p.m. so they could go home. Right about this time, we started to figure there was something up with these guys. They didn't care that we didn't get started until late and wanted to send us home early. Yet, a big part of us being there was to get it done fast. This didn't make sense. Either way, we figured we'd still be able to get done in about 3 days and make record time for the project of this size, all while making a fair amount of money for ourselves. The next morning, as we were getting ready to head out for the day, Brad received an email, and it said, "While we can tell that your company are master operators with their machines, we feel that they are operating in an unsafe manner by running multiple machines at once and request that they slow down to maintain safe working conditions. They also didn't try to make sure our supervisors felt that they were safe throughout the day." Brad was pissed. We were called in to get things done fast, and not once had we done a single thing that could be considered unsafe. When we got out to the job that day for the safety meeting, Brad had changed from "screw these guys, they don't know anything about what we are doing," to "okay, we are too fast, we will slow it right down for them." At the safety meeting, John, the same guy who sent us the email, looked at us and said, "Okay, everyone knows what we are doing, let's get it done." He tried to end the safety meeting with that, but that's when my boss spoke up. He said, "Hold on, since no one is man enough to tell us in person and just want to hide behind their emails, let's get this straight. We are too fast and unsafe for you?" John became visibly uncomfortable and stammered out, "Well, there was a lot of people standing around and watching you yesterday, and I just felt that someone would get hurt. I had set up safety cones with red danger tape strung between it and told no one to cross. We had taken proper safety precautions. If they didn't feel comfortable to have that many people watching, then don't have that many people standing, watching, and doing nothing." All Brad said was, "Okay, we will be real slow, and if someone crosses our line, we will shut down the site for an hour for another safety meeting." Time for the malicious compliance. We started up for the day. Something to note about our saws, tractors, and other heavy equipment is that we have the ability to turn up the idle, or in other words, we can turn up or down the speed of the motors. So instead of everything moving normally and how it should, which is fast, everything is moving at turtle speed. Brad told us that if we ever sped up our machines, that he would kick us off the job. Even Cody, his business partner. I was cutting with our saw while Cody was in the excavator to remove the pieces that I had cut. Brad was in the skid steer to haul the pieces to the dump truck. I would cut the concrete into a 6x6 piece, which would normally take me about 20 to 30 minutes. It was taking upwards of 3 hours for one piece. After I would cut, Cody in the excavator would turn his machine on, slowly turn and stop, extend his bucket, stop, lower the bucket, stop, tilt the bucket, stop, pick up the piece, stop, turn, stop, drop the piece, stop, shut off his machine, all without idling up. Then Brad would start his machine and repeat the same process to load it into the dump truck. You get the point. It was painfully slow. After the first piece was ready to be pulled out and Cody started the process, John, who was just sitting on the sideline, pale-faced, crossed my line to ask if we were really serious. And at that point, Brad screamed, "Shut down!" as we all stepped away for an hour for a safety meeting. John crossed the line 3 times in the first day and 8 times total throughout the project. His employees never once crossed the danger line. Effectively, John was the only one he should have been worried about in his email about getting too close and being in danger. John kept saying, "No way you guys are being serious. What happened to what you guys were doing yesterday? You were so much more efficient." Brad just said, "I have in writing that you felt unsafe, so for the remainder of this project, we will be operating at a safe pace." It ended up taking us 3 weeks to finish at that horribly slow pace instead of just 3 or 4 days at full speed. The best part, the head of the facility came out to see what was taking us so long. We showed him the email and he agreed with what we were doing. He told us that he hates John and that he's insufferable to work around. He said that the success of this project is directly tied to John's yearly bonus. He asked us how much we were charging them, and we told him that per piece of equipment and truck and saw that is on the site is being billed to them by the hour, and that John had requested that we have nearly double the amount of equipment than we actually needed or used. The facility head just laughed and said, "Fantastic. I will make sure you are paid in full. Don't go easy on us with the bill." That's how we maliciously complied our way into charging about $200,000 for a job that should have realistically only been worth about $45,000. I even got paid a solid $20,000 bonus because Brad and Cody are fantastic bosses and knew we made a killing on that job. Update. I felt like I wanted to clarify a couple of things after reading the comments. First, yes, John tried to get us back to our previous working rate, but he would only ever verbally ask. My boss kept telling him, "I need that in writing and you have a deal. Hell, it might even save yourself some money while you're at it." But John either never understood what was implied or really didn't want to send an email recanting his statement, believing that it would make him look dumb for making a mistake. Second, this was a big project, bigger than what my part in it was. That being said, with how John was with us, I would seriously doubt every other aspect of the job went smooth for him. I bet they ended up with some profit, but not nearly as much as they would have without John, meaning he still probably got a bonus, just a very small one. Third, how did they have so many people to stand around and watch us for 3 weeks and not work? Well, by the end of the 3rd week, there was probably only 10 people watching us. And this was a huge facility that had hundreds of employees working there. So for 25 people at a time to sneak out for most of the day to watch us wasn't too big of a deal for them. They usually rotated, and if we saw someone one day, we didn't really see that person again for about a week. Also, just another little satisfying part of the story I should have included was that Cody has had a saying since the very first time I worked with him. He says, "We aren't trying to retire off this one single job. We are treating the customer fair. But fair isn't always cheap." After the facility head gave us the go-ahead to charge what was needed and not take it easy, Cody looked at us and said, "Yep, we are retiring off this one." Obviously, it was more of a joke, but the satisfaction I got from hearing him say that after knowing him for 10 years to be the guy who is extra fair will never be rivaled. Well, that's going to do it for today, folks. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and make sure to like, subscribe, and tick the bell to make sure you don't miss out on any future content. Peace out.